I remember feeling lonely on Wall Street. I had so many trader friends, but it was also like, hey, this isn't like my people. I was just starting to make like serious money. You could have jets and you could have whatever you wanted. But at the end of the day, I would also see people on Wall Street that sort of felt stuck in it. They don't really love what they're doing and they feel like there's something missing, but then they can't leave it. I went through this like binge of reading Gandhi's autobiography and Roe at the time, Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement, reading about that movement and the sacrifices and bravery that people had made. I was like, oh, you know, you really have a choice how you're going to spend your time and what you're going to do. I had started a nonprofit and then basically decided to start a business. There is very few people who really want the risk. You don't know what's going to happen. Like entrepreneurs, like you're compounding over time and every bit that you do is going into this thing that then can pay dividends for you financially, but also creatively and your whole life. If you have even the inkling that you should be an entrepreneur, that's what you should do.
Welcome to the exit interview. Today we are here with Sam Polk, who's the CEO and founder of Everytable. Sam is also ex-Wall Street trader who decided to make a career transition, leaning into purpose from materialistic gain and achievement. Today, we're really here to talk about the exit, shifting from success as a measure of monetary status to more mission-driven purpose as a business. So, Sam, welcome to the exit interview.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Why don't we start with your story of you just telling us a little bit about your business first, and then also the shift from your history into why you decided to make a shift?
Sure. So Everytable is a social enterprise that makes healthy food affordable and accessible to everyone. And we'll probably get into it, but many people have heard these phrases like food desert or food inequality. And certainly people know that, you know, a salad costs $18 now and burgers and fries can often be a lot cheaper than that. And there's some neighborhoods that don't have access to any fresh food at all. And Everytable, which we'll get into, I think has made probably more progress in terms of bringing healthy food into all different kinds of communities and making it really affordable and really good, you know, than most companies in the country.
That's a pretty drastic shift from Wall Street. You historically were a Wall Street trader making millions of dollars. So what was it that made you make the shift, and how different is that life?
When I made the shift from Wall Street, I was 30 years old. I grew up in Los Angeles and, you know, sort of like a middle-class family, public schools, always sort of struggling to make ends meet, but okay. Went to Columbia and that was a very exciting thing for me. During Columbia, I got an internship at a Wall Street investment bank. And I remember like walking into that and just seeing like a whole different world than I had ever seen before of like, just wealth and the clothes people were wearing. And traders would always carry these like big wads of cash. And so for me, like there was a lot of sort of like almost like class thing where I was like, I realized that I had somehow made it into this Ivy League school. And then that gave me entrance into this whole world. And so that's what I did. Like when I was, you know, 22 or whatever, when I graduated college, like went to Wall Street and was there for, you know, almost 10 years. And then by the time I was 30, basically, you know, people ask me all the time, like, is Wall Street, was it stressful? Was it, and it wasn't that at all. And also like, I really liked the job. Like it was like a very fun, I was a bond trader. I was a distressed trader, did a lot of derivative stuff, like it's fascinating, interesting stuff. But it was also like, I think I sort of had like a quarter life crisis, you know, and I sort of like I could see my bosses and what they were doing and what their life was like. And I just sort of like had this moment that I was like, you know, what are you going to do with your life? What are we all sort of going to do with our lives? You know what I mean?
Make more money, obviously.
Yeah. And I think it was that. And like, you know, for me, it was like on one level. And, you know, by the way, I think like people can have great careers in investments. And I think there's a lot of, you know, whatever. But it was like at the end of the day, you know, what I get to show for my very successful career is like, here's a printout of all like the percentage returns I've made for all this money. And at the time I was for some reason, I went through this like binge of reading, like I read like Gandhi's autobiography. I was reading like Thoreau at the time, but I also read this series on Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. And I really got deep into that. And so I was like reading about that movement and the sacrifices and bravery that people had made during that time. And it wasn't like I was like, I'm going to do that, as much as I was like, oh, you really have a choice on like how you're going to spend your time and what you're going to do. What is that choice going to be?
Yeah. The culture of finance, though, is one it's a very unique culture. But once you're in it, and you become immersed in it. You conform to whatever the expectations are when you're in that space. You turn into a commodity that's inside this golden cage. And there's also the saying about like you have this golden handcuff. So when you decided to switch over to being in the nonprofit space, you're also giving up, at least in the short term, the golden handcuff. And so what was that internal dialogue?
It was a really sort of like excruciating decision. And I think the thing that I saw was like, I was just starting to make like serious money that, you could make that forever and you would never have to worry about money again. And you could have jets and you could have whatever you wanted. But at the end of the day, like I would also see people on Wall Street that sort of felt stuck in it. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I see sort of like the inverse of that in the nonprofit side these days.
Oh, interesting.
But like on Wall Street, you would have people that would be like, there's huge disparities on Wall Street. So sometimes you have people that are making $1 billion, right? But most of the people end up making $1 million to $2 or $3 million a year. And it's like, it's a hell of a lot of money, but it's also not what they sort of expected going in on some level. And so you see these people that are like in this place where they've got enough money and they're making the money, but they don't really love what they're doing and they feel like there's something like missing, but then they can't leave it.
Because now you're in this place where you have to maintain a certain kind of life and lifestyle, right?
And so that didn't sound like, it just didn't sound great.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's true when they say once you get to a certain number, it's pretty much the same, like your lifestyle doesn't materially change? And so then that satisfaction of getting that big bonus every single year, time and time or over and over again, diminishes the satisfaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think you watch the show Friends and Neighbors these days.
Yeah,
it's like everybody sort of like gets to that place, and they're all sort of, that is sort of what you were saying, like that's your culture and that's your community. And it's not, you don't have that much more, that much less than everybody there. And by the way, that lifestyle is really nice. And I think they do a good job
They
of
do
showing
a great
it,
job
of
of capturing it. I think that's one of the best parts of the show, is like capturing the ecosystem of the mindset of the people, and how even like this last episode, it was like so funny how he's like, like talking about how sad he is, like, or how angry he is, or how mad he is. It's like, but you have all of these things, you have all of this, you've achieved all of these things, but somehow there's something at the core that's still not healed, that you thought would be healed, or not resolved, that you thought would be resolved. And so all you have is this kind of competition with your peers.
and I don't even know, to be honest, like if like, I do think it's easy to sort of like talk about Wall Street as this place that we like, that people are all sort of going through the same thing, and we could sort of analyze their like, but I think about it as sort of like deeper and sort of more applicable to everybody, which is like, we are all sort of on this sort of like journey. And that journey, I think sort of at the end of the day, the journey is about, do you at the end of the day feel like you had a successful life? You are proud of what you've done. And we're all sort of in that. And my best guess as to the answer as to what that is that you sort of like achieve a goal or do something that is sort of like personal to who you are, and is like, and sort of like reflects your actual truth of who you are, your authentic self as a human being. And so that's why I say, like, I don't know Warren Buffett personally, but it sure sounds like that was his authentic self, and he went and did it, and he's like, he's like good.
He's one of the few where it feels like, this is who you are.
And so like, so I think what you see on Wall Street, and by the way, you see this in nonprofits, although it's not necessarily about their authentic self as much as they're like burned out and beaten down and don't have any money, and like it's hard to live in a world without money. I mean, and so, but it's like at the end of the day, we're all just like answering that question.
So what was it from like being a trader that you realized, okay, now this is not fulfilling all parts of your authentic self? Because people who in finance, or anyone who's affluent, does participate in nonprofit through donations. But what was it that took you to the next step of wanting to be?
Well, I'll tell you the thing that I sort of remember the most, that was not, it wasn't like this like intellectual decision that I made or about like the actual content of the work. I remember feeling lonely on Wall Street. And like, by the way, I had like so many trader friends. We had like this trading desk at Bank of America that we were all such good friends, and and I'm still good friends with them today. But it was also like we would get together on a Saturday for brunch. I just felt like, hey, this isn't like my people. This is sort of like what I'm doing and hanging out with, but there's not. And I think that what that was sort of like speaking to was like, I think I may be somebody that cares more about sort of like doing something for the world and standing up for something and than other people do. And so like for me, that was missing on Wall Street. In a lot of ways, Wall Street was like a dream job, and especially when I was at a hedge fund, because what you do, or what I was doing, was like you would just read all the time and learn about the world, and then sort of like play a game to see if you could had read enough and you were smart enough to figure it out better than other people. And there was some bad moments for sure, like when you're losing money on a trade or whatever, it is a terrible feeling. But when you're making a lot of money on a trade, you're just like, wait, I'm reading and now I'm so smart,
and now I did
get
this
paid
thing,
a lot, and everybody calls me, and like it's great. But at the end of the day, there was sort of like nothing there. There was like, it was like what,
like a hollowness to it.
It's adrenaline inducing. Working in finance, I think, in general.
Yeah, but I mean, but I think like, to me, also being an entrepreneur is adrenaline inducing and hard and intellectually challenging. So in a lot of, I think that's the point of it for me, which is like, it's all hard work. Like everybody's working hard. Everybody's smart. Everybody's trying to figure stuff out. It's just, are you working on something that resonates with your soul or not?
Yeah. Why not just volunteer, get involved in the community instead of actually exiting?
Because I don't think that actually does anything. I'm sort of cynical about sort of volunteering in a lot of ways, but like a lot of times I think that volunteering is much more about the benefit to the volunteer than it's actually that like untrained manual labor is really what is necessary in that situation.
You want a higher level of impact.
That's sort of what I'm saying about entrepreneurship is at the end of the day, there's a lot of similarities between what I'm doing at Everytable and what I was doing at Wall Street, which is like, I'm working really hard, learning a lot of stuff. And it's not just to give back to the world. Like there is a very real financial outcome that is potential from this. And I actually like have come to respect sort of capitalism way more from this position than I did sort of as a trader.
Oh, tell me about that. What do you mean when you say that?
When you're a trader, it's sort of like I was saying, like it's a game, and it's like you see, it's bonds and stocks and companies. You sort of think you know the companies, but you don't really know the companies. You know a little bit of their financial metrics and a little bit of the industries that they're in. But then when you sort of like build a company, and you're probably going through this on some level, is like you start to understand I think the sort of like elegance of the structure. And what I mean is like, you have this idea, you raise capital or somehow start it, and then you're in business. And then all of a sudden your entire financial future is staked to this thing. And there's this sort of like beautiful symmetry with for-profit capitalism that doesn't exist with nonprofit capitalism, which is like, can you convince people to raise money? But then once you raise money, can you turn that into revenue at a high enough multiple that you can then raise more money? And if you don't, you either won't raise capital or the business will get taken from you, et cetera. And your whole sort of like focus is on the survival and thriving of this company. And what is at stake is so big. It's like, either this dream that you had materializes and you get to have this impact in the world and you get to have a financial windfall and change the position of your life, or you don't. And it's sort of like so sort of personal and like real that you would never understand that as like trading bonds of a company. Basically.
Yeah. So you said there's also an inverse of the mindset of shifting from being motivated through financial gain and then entering into a nonprofit sector, and then the reverse, and that there's still even an internal war there that happens when people are trying to flip to the other side. So what do you mean by that?
I've seen this play out a few times in the same way. Like the sort of archetype for me is the guy in finance who, made $12 million or something. And so he's like bummed out about that, but he's also sort of trapped by it. And then in nonprofits, it's like, I know a guy out here who runs one of the most successful nonprofits in Los Angeles. And all he talks about and thinks about is like moving to a foundation or moving to something where he can rest. Because if you think about it, like the people who start nonprofits are doing the same thing that an entrepreneur is, brutal.
Absolutely.
But there's no end of
There's
it.
no end
There's
in
no
sight.
gain.
You have to do it
There's
again next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's demoralizing in a lot of ways. And people
Right.
feel like, well, I've given so much, but like we were saying, like, it is hard to live in Los Angeles without a huge amount of money.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
true in New
Yeah.
York. You
Oh,
know what
yeah.
I mean? And so as good as you feel about doing stuff in the world, like, there are financial realities.
Yeah.
And also, and I think this, had to do with like when I was 30, but like people start thinking about their families and taking care of it family. And like
Absolutely.
you can be as idealistic as you want when you're 25. And then when you're 40 with 2
Had
kids,
a kid.
you
No,
know,
it's
Yeah.
a wrap.
you're gonna do what it takes.
Yeah.
Drive an Uber, you
Yeah.
know?
No, absolutely.
So from the time that you started to decide, okay, I think this is no longer for me, this lifestyle, working in Wall Street, and then shifting into entrepreneurship and nonprofit world, how long did that take you to finally actually exit?
It took me a long time to sort of like find my way. So I would say that there was like a good 12 months of sort of like this like soul searching, but also this like terrible, like, am I really going to leave this job that I've worked so hard to get at and that
Right.
is such a hard seat in the world to get?
Yeah.
And then when I ended up leaving, it took me a while to figure out what I was going to do. And so that was like an awful period of sort of like, knowing the world was passing me by and that I
Right.
had made a choice, but I didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
And then the first thing I did was I started a nonprofit and I ran that for like 3 years. And that was sort of like where I'm sort of like talking about some of the stuff that I learned on that because I absolutely loved the work and I absolutely loved the mission. And there were so many wonderful things about it. But I also could sort of after 2 years of it, could see that there was nowhere to go with it. And then at the time, my wife and I started to have kids and she was like, I've always been sort of like deeply idealistic and she's more pragmatic than I am sometimes. And she was
Yeah.
like, Sam, you made a good amount of money on Wall Street. That's great. She's like, but let me show you how that works over the next 30 years. And she
Right.
created a financial model that was like,
Uh-oh.
she was like, and this is
Now
what
you're gonna
private
be-
school is going to cost.
Yeah.
Right.
And we sent our kids to public school, but she wanted to make sure that we were,
Sure.
You had the
And-
option.
yeah. And she
Yeah.
was like, yeah, this is, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And so then to me, like Everytable is the thing that I'm happiest about with Everytable. It can do everything. Like
Right.
it has this deep mission and this, but also it is a very scalable business that can be worth billions of dollars. So to me, that's like, so, as hard as, running a business is, and there's never any doubt for me that I'm doing something that is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
And how did you come to that particular lane and dealing with food deserts or food insecurity and providing healthy food to different communities? Like what drew you into that particular way of expressing?
I think there's sort of like 2 answers to that. My wife and I sat down one weekend and watched all the Netflix food documentaries.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that'll get you right
That'll
much
get
together
you.
on the Christmas
Yeah.
holiday.
Yeah.
And most of them, as you know, are about like organic and the
Yep.
food system. But there was one that was called A Place at the Table that it was about the intersection of food and poverty. And that was the one where I was like, to be honest, I didn't really know it. You know what I mean? I was like, what? There's neighborhoods 3 miles from
Yeah,
here.
I'm about to
where
say
there's
in
no,
LA,
like-
it's all over the place. Yeah.
And so to me, that was just this simple idea that was like, oh, well, healthy food should be accessible to everybody. And sort of why isn't it? And that's not right.
Yeah.
And so that was sort
But
of like,
why isn't it? Well, like, what is your answer to that question?
actually, I feel proud because I think that I know the answer better than anybody.
Tell me.
And I think that I think that one of the interesting things about that question is that people project so much onto it about why it is. But I think the truth of it is that this is a little like food system nerdy, but like the food system, which basically just means all the restaurants and grocery stores and liquor stores and convenience stores and whatever, what the modern food system was built over the last like 70 years. And what really built it is when they figured out how to make processed food. Because when you make processed food in a factory with chemicals and you take out all the fresh stuff and what happens is that it becomes non-perishable.
Right.
So think about like Cheetos or like Coca-Cola, like
Sure.
none of that's going bad. And it turns out that there's sort of like,
Because it's not food.
yeah, but that's the key
Right.
thing is that nobody recognized that at the time
Right.
because I'll tell you what, it tastes really good.
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
100% it tastes really
Yeah.
good. and it never goes bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that meant is that people could start building massive factories that could produce all these things
Mhm.
and then shipping that food all over the world. And because they had the scale
Right.
and the efficiency, that food was really cheap. So it was really cheap. Whereas when you think about fresh food, you can't make a salad in here and then send it to China, right? You just
Right.
can't do it. You can't even send it to Las Vegas for the most part, right?
Right.
You got to make it here and eat it here.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, you don't have near the economies of scale
Sure.
that you do with the factory that makes Pop-Tarts, which
Right.
I've never seen it, but it's got to be an incredible system of like machines. And like
Mhm.
no
Yeah.
human being is like making a Pop-Tart.
Not
You know
not
what
a
I
one.
So that's why fresh food is more expensive than processed food.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when you have neighborhoods that can't afford more than $6 or $7 a meal, you can't really make a Sweet Green work in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it ends up that all that's available is the cheap food.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's so interesting. Although I will say, I'm not a scientist, but I'm convinced that the reason our generations look younger than they are is because of the processed food that we consumed, and it's also the reason why we're all dying of cancer early. But trade-offs.
Totally. We'll take that.
So when you had done your first exit, which was from Wall Street into being an entrepreneur, so you're saying that took about a year before you actually pulled the trigger. Did you have like a downtime or you jumped into it immediately?
No, I had like that, like I was saying, like I left Wall Street without knowing what I was going to do.
Mhm.
And so moved back to Los Angeles with my wife, or she was my girlfriend at the time. And then she was in residency. So she was working like 100 hours a week
Oh, wow.
doing
Yeah.
surgery at USC. And I was reading a lot and
Mhm.
Yeah.
taking a lot of hikes and
Yeah.
doing Runyon Canyon. And
Yeah.
she was like, what are you doing? Basically.
Yeah.
But I think I was just like figuring it out.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of criticism? Did people say like, what are you doing? You're crazy for leaving
Absolutely.
this
I
job?
mean,
Yeah.
they totally thought I was
You're
crazy.
nuts. I
And
can-
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it was crazy. It was like,
Sure.
this is a society that's built around access to that kind of money.
Absolutely.
It was.
And status.
So how did
Yeah.
you block out the noise and decide to stay the path forward?
I knew the benefit of having seen it was that I knew sort of like what it felt like, and I just didn't want to feel like that when I was 40. I definitely didn't want to feel like it when I was 50, like lonely, but also like not proud of what I had done. And it's not. There's a difference between like not proud and critical of it, and I'm not critical of like Wall Street. I think it's
Yeah.
like investment banks need to exist, traders need to exist. There's
Mhm.
it provides a good capital markets and
Mhm.
lowers the cost of borrowing for everybody.
Yeah.
But it just is like it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Mm.
I do think that we have these like, when you really step back and think about this like blue planet like hurtling through space, like none of it really matters,
Mhm.
right? And so then, but we all take it so seriously. But if you really think about like none of it matters, then it seems like you have two sort of like options: live a life that you think sort of like gets you the most enjoyment out of it, or live a life that you think like means the most. And
Mhm.
I think it ends up that they actually end up sort of being the same thing,
Right.
Mhm.
even though it doesn't seem like that,
Mhm, mhm.
where it's like, Wall Street, I think it was very clear that I would have a lot of money and really nice things all the time. And not that I can't have that now and I won't have that now, but it was just a different level when you're
Mhm.
27 than
Yeah.
Sure.
anything else. But it's not, it was sort of like what you were saying is like, you get the clothes, you get the vacations, and then you're like, so what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like
Exactly.
what now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you ended up with your first business 3 years, and then you had to make a decision at that point. So one of the things we talk about a lot and we hear a lot is, particularly in this environment, there's been a lot of layoffs. People have either left by choice or not by choice, like by circumstances, and looking back to go into that corporate job or things like that. But then there's the other path where maybe they do want to do entrepreneurship or they do want to do nonprofit and take a step down. And the question for you is, one of the things people are afraid of is the failure of the next venture. So, did you feel a little bit like you were failing at that 3-year mark and then having to pivot again, or
Not
what was your
really. I mean,
approach?
to me, the move from, so I had started a nonprofit and then
Mhm.
basically decided to start a business. So to me, it seems sort of like more like an evolution.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think that there's very few people who really want the risk and really want to take that risk and have it be on their shoulders, and you don't know what's going to happen. And
Mhm.
so my advice to like anybody that thinks that might be true for them, then I think 100% you should be an entrepreneur, because it is literally like the man in the arena from the Theodore Roosevelt quote.
Mhm.
And it is like, you are putting it on the line. And also it like makes sense intellectually. The thing about doing a corporate job that sort of doesn't make sense is like, and I've fired plenty of people. It's like you work for 5 years with
Mm.
this company and you give everything, and then one day you're just gone and that's it. You just got your salary for that.
Right.
Whereas like entrepreneurs, like you're compounding over time, and every bit that you do is going into this thing that then
Right.
can pay dividends for you financially, but also creatively and
Right.
for
Yeah.
your whole
Right.
life. So to me, like if you have even the inkling that you should be an entrepreneur, that's what you should do. And if there's any like 20-year-old kids, like that's what I would tell them is like, if you think that you might do that, then F
just
the
do it.
investment banks, F consulting, like
Right. It's okay. That's okay.
go figure out what you're going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for the other folks, I don't know what the advice is because that's not sort of like my perspective, but I will say that like 9 out of 10 people, when they flirt with it, they're never going to do it.
Right.
They want to stay in that safety
Sure.
of
Right.
somebody else's system.
Right. When you pivot from the nonprofit, or you evolve it now into the business that is Everytable, like what for you were some of the biggest challenges in the beginning of like, did you encounter resistance?
There's a couple answers to that. Like the pushback that most people had was, both of which turned out to be completely untrue, was that A, there's no demand for healthy food in underserved neighborhoods. And that's just
Really
untrue. And then 2 was
but that was the thinking?
yeah, people
That they just don't want healthy food?
Yes, that is a pervasive
Really?
belief in the world. Yes, 100%. And then
Does that have a racial undertone? That
For
belief?
sure it does.
I'm like,
For sure it does. Yeah.
wow.
And then the second was that people were going to be really pissed about 2 different prices. So Everytable charges a slightly higher price in middle income or upper income versus a lower price in underserved neighborhoods. And to me, that was sort of just like laughable because I didn't think people were going to be pissed, but then people would always be like, well, somebody's going to drive down from Beverly Hills to Inglewood to get and I would be like,
absolutely not.
well, I would be like, that's never going to happen.
Never
Like, I won't
gonna
even drive 2 minutes out of my way to save $2.
Not in this
Never going to
traffic.
happen. And then 2,
because they don't care about the $2.
But the other thing was
Beverly Hills don't care about the $2.
Yeah, well, but the other thing I was also like, well, Inglewood's going to be profitable, so let them. Great,
Exactly.
that'll be more business in Inglewood. But then the truly hard thing, which I didn't understand at the time, and in retrospect, it is sort of like laughable, but is I had 0 experience in food, like literally nothing. And the model that we had created, which is it's pretty simple, but it's also pretty complicated, and it's vertically integrated, is that is one of the most operationally complicated and intensive models you could do in the food industry. And so you had somebody that knows nothing about this doing the most complicated things, and that led to a brutal 5 years.
Right. Just like learning what it was.
I mean, food is really hard, and food is not something that you can sort of like learn by like reading. It's like you have to do it, you have to see it, you have to experience it, how to keep quality up and the taste and the people and the
so what was it that gave you the resiliency?
I don't know how to answer that without sounding self-aggrandizing, but I think it's true just for every sort of entrepreneur, which is that's what the deal is. You know what I mean? Like I've always been a person that's tough to beat, basically.
Yeah. So what has given you more purpose shifting into this business? And now the void that you described earlier on in your career, what is that filled with?
I would say it is filled with Everytable. And I think what I mean is I exercise the same level of ambition that I did on Wall Street with Everytable every single day. Like it is, I'm reading as much, I'm working as hard, like I'm figuring out this complicated puzzle. And I think that there is huge financial wealth at the end of that rainbow. And I know the people that we're working with. And I mean, both the customers that I see coming into our stores at Watts, but also the entrepreneurs that own their own Everytable stores. And these are like personal connections that I have that are like, oh, I know that if this thing goes to the moon, then Susanna, who runs Inglewood, is going to make a ton of money. And she already is sort of like lifting up her family's life. And so it's like, it's just sort of like, and I think that maybe one of the important things about it is that it's less about this like high level theory of like, oh, I think that being in nonprofits would do good, as opposed to like just like seeing it and knowing the people and like understanding what it means in people's lives.
Absolutely. To have that access.
Yeah.
And what were some of the experiences going into some of these underserved communities or underserved areas where there traditionally were food deserts? What was the response? What was the feedback? Like, what was that experience like for you?
So I first started by running this nonprofit. At the time it was called Grocery Ships, is now called Feast. And so I would basically be running groups it was mostly moms. So it'd be like 10 moms who were trying to get themselves and their families healthy amidst a challenging food environment. And I set it up like not as a didactic lecture, but more as sort of like a support group. It was sort of modeled on 12-step stuff, but also Native American healing circles. And what I learned was sort of like not really a surprise to me, but it's just like just normal people living their lives in a slightly less affluent sort of neighborhood.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Course.
But I did remember that people were really pissed off about about not having access to good. Really pissed off. They really wanted. And that's what sort of pushed me to start Everytable, which was like, well, there's demand. So can you figure out a system that allows you to lower the cost of that fresh food?
What I personally appreciate about Everytable that's different, having come from Brooklyn and watching my entire neighborhood get gentrified from up under me, was that sadly, normally the introduction of healthy food options or better food choices signals that you can no longer be in that neighborhood.
And it comes at a higher price.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
It's a signifier that like, now the rents are about to go up, or like the whole economy of your neighborhood is about to change to price you out. It's normally almost like a harbinger of doom.
Yeah.
That like, oh, the Whole Foods is coming, or this is coming, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, all right, great. Like, so the fact that a place like Everytable can come to the community and be that place and not be a harbinger of doom.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And by the way, that reminds me, like we see that in real estate where a lot of times you'll get real estate brokers that are like, no, you don't want to go to that community. You want to go to this one because it's up and coming and da-da-da. And we'd be like, no, we want that. We don't, it's fine just how it is. You know what I mean? But I think they're going to buy our food.
Exactly. No, but it's just unfortunate. That's normally how it is, or how it gets perceived. Like when the businesses start changing, or like I said, the grocery stores improve, or things like that, like improve they come to not to serve the community that's there, but to appeal to a new community that they're trying to entice into the area, which then changes the entire demographic.
But there's
there's
also like a non sort of like racism based way of looking at that, going back to like my definition of fresh food, which is like fresh food is a thing that people want. And so, but they're trying to put it into a community because people are moving into it so that they can finally afford it. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that is the rub of like how to sort of like solve food deserts on some level is like, you've got to figure out how to make like the highest quality, good, fresh, good food at a good price point. And the funny thing is that like, we've been doing this for 10 years and there's been conversations about food deserts for, I don't know, 50
forever.
years.
Yeah, sure.
And there's not really a lot of progress I see outside of Everytable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny because we make jokes, and we have on previous podcast episodes as well, as like, when you made it, when you can buy the cut fruit at the grocery store. Like that's when you made it. Because
the berries are so expensive.
I know. So expensive.
It's like, that's when you made it. But I remember being a kid, and like I don't have a very good relationship with food because I did grow up eating a lot of processed foods. And I remember going to the food banks, they would give us the leftover milk packs that weren't served at the schools. And then they would also have fresh vegetables in there. Now, as an adult, I shop at Whole Foods and everything. And every time I leave there, it's like a $400 bill. And
Easy.
I go there, though, because the food is fresher, particularly living in Vegas, than it is like at the other grocery stores and things like that. But I talk to my husband all the time and I say, especially now when people are getting laid off and all these things, or in underprivileged communities, I wonder, how do people eat? Like, how can you can't.
Yeah.
Like, this is so expensive.
Exactly.
I'm finding it expensive, and so I can't even imagine. But when you see the impact that you have on these communities, does it motivate you to influence others to come into this type of building as well?
I think that's a good question. To be honest, sort of like not really. going back to like sort of the elegance of capitalism is like all I care about is
Mhm.
Everytable and growing it to a 10,000 stores.
And hoping that in and of itself becomes.
And going back to the other thing too, it's like I actually don't like I truly do not feel like I am doing a better path or that, you know, I am somehow it's like people have to figure out their own things and like at the end of the day answer that own question for themselves.
Yeah.
Did you live an authentic, successful life?
Yeah. It's sort of like you are focused on erasing your own carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, would it have been easier if I was just somebody that didn't care about impact? I don't know who those people are, but maybe they're thrilled.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
They may be. I don't know. I'm assuming some of these people might have a blissful unawareness to certain.
Like,
to
do you
some
know
extent.
what you think that you would be your own authentic, successful life? Imagine that you're 85 years old
Sure.
and you're like assessing your life. I did this. This is how I lived, and this is why I think it's a success for me. Do you know what the answer to that is?
I think so. I mean, for me, it's for me a lot of the lever is impact, but like personally, like some of the work that I've done in the work that I've done in my life that I think about at night that really resonates with me. Obviously, it's my own children, right? The impact I can have on them and their lives, and hopefully how they see themselves and how they move through the world. But part of why my coaching is so important to me and why it's something I did where at the time when I was producing and I became a coach, people were like, there was a lot of like, what's that about? What are you doing? Because people, especially in film, are very singular and they can't see you as more than one thing, which is very annoying. And there's other industries like that too. But in my coaching work, watching people go from point A to point B, like watching through the process, how they're able to open up, how they're able to do different things in their lives, how they're able to whatever, get a different job or, start their own business or express themselves because we were able to manage their fear a little bit different. And then they were able to do that work that's the stuff for me that like, I know the impact that I've had on individual people.
Yeah.
And if I continue to do that or ideally do it at scale, that's important. And my film work does that as well, but it's in who I work with. Like as a leader, it shows up like how I mentor people, how I work with people, how I try to bring the best out in people on any show that I'm running. That's important. And also the work that we're doing, that work has impact and is hopefully moving a needle in some way, shape, or form and getting people to think a certain way or look at things as, different. So like the impact is always at the end of the day, to me, the thing that gives me the most satisfaction. Then is the thing that I'm always struggling against or suffering against. Like that's the tension. Are you doing enough on an impact level?
It sounds like you found your thing for sure.
Yeah, that for me is even the podcast in a way. It's like, we're talking about the work and modern life and what people are struggling with. And if there's a way that we can mine insights from people who have been through similar struggles to give them like, oh, okay, now I kind of know what to do, or now I at least feel seen. I don't feel so alone, or I feel like a little safer, and now I can go and start that business or do that thing. Great. It's always impact for me. Like, it's like, are you helping people in some fundamental way, right? I of course care about that I'm making money or, creating business or doing commerce as well. But fundamentally, I need to feel like I'm serving in some way to feel satisfied with any work that I'm doing.
Well, I mean, going like one of the things that I have, one of the framings that I sort of would put on that, maybe this is like different or different sort of levels for different people.
Sure.
But I think that it's like somebody once told me that aspiration is what you want to do for other people and the world. And that ambition is what you want to do for yourself. And so I think, and that's what I like about Everytable, sounds what you like is like, if you can figure out a way to put those two things together, then you got it.
Absolutely.
What else do you need to do?
Yeah. What have bin the cornerstones of your success?
I think that's a good question. I think, I was like, so, I mean, I think I've got a few talents in a few different areas, but in addition to that, I was a competitive wrestler growing up. I don't know if you know any wrestlers but it is a brutal
It's a brutal sport.
It's a brutal, like, and the thing I would always think about with wrestling is that in most sports, you're like, okay, you got to practice, but then when it's time to play, you play. You go play
Right.
basketball.
No, wrestling.
Wrestling
Yeah,
is
there's
at
no
the end
practice.
of the practice where they're like, okay, now it's time to wrestle. You're like, oh God, just like, And so I think that is just like, I think what that shows is like, I'm just somebody that can endure a lot and go through a lot and work really hard. And I get something out of that. And I think that is helpful for all the things that I'm.
What do you feel has been the thing that you internally had to manage or overcome the most in order to be successful? Like, was there a thing internally that you felt that you had to master or get a hold of in order to have that level of resilience? Or do you?
I think the journey for me has actually been about sort of getting to a place of sort of like trusting just myself. And I think what I mean is like when I started Everytable, I had a co-founder and I felt like I really needed him. And then over the years, I would have like, different coaches at various times, great executive coaches, stuff like that.
Get a great executive coach.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But also like for me, there was like this process of like going through levels and then finally being like, okay, now I'm going to get to a place, not that I don't need anybody, but it's like, and now I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to be enough to figure this out. I'm going to go out on my own. And I think that was like, that's been the journey for me.
Sure.
And it's been
feeling comfortable being enough is always
and being the person like
Right,
that it's not I'm going to ask this person for advice or this person for advice, but I'm just going to make
it. Right. Trusting your own kind of instinct and way forward enough that even if people disagree with it or can't quite see it, you'll still execute on it.
What have there been any setbacks that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome?
I feel like that is like literally my job on some level. Like, do you know this Elon Musk quote where he says, it took me a while to understand it, but he says like being an entrepreneur is chewing glass while staring into the abyss. And what he means is that as an entrepreneur, you're literally always facing the existential threat to your business, which is for most businesses always there. So you're always, and like I'm talking about, it's like, and that's a very scary thing to be looking at. And then you're chewing glass, which is that all of the hardest problems of your company filter up to you so that you only get to deal with the hardest.
I see what you're saying.
So like one of the things that I've gotten very good at is on the days that it is just too overwhelming. And at the end of it, I'm like so demoralized. I'm just like, I'm gonna go to sleep. And I know I'm gonna wake up, and when I have coffee in the morning, it's gonna feel better. It's gonna feel better. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna say that happens like 3 times a week.
Nothing a good latte can't cure.
You know what I mean?
Was there ever any moments in time where you thought about like, I need to go back?
No, there was never that, but there have been times where I have been like in a brutal stage and things like, we've had our ups and downs as a company and things weren't working and being like, gosh, if I had stayed there, I would be blah 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 and have this kind of
like
thing.
You fantasize about what would have been.
It's like it's sort of like the road not taken on some level. And actually, they're both kind of the same road. You don't really know. And it's
interesting.
And I think that's true on some level. So it's more like sometimes when this road that I've taken, then you can look back and be like, I wonder what it would be like to, be soulfully tortured, but have like easier path ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
Who have been the key people in your journey who have attributed to your success?
My mentor on Wall Street, who was both my mentor at Bank of America, then helped me when I went to hedge fund, but also was so instrumental in sort of my decision to leave Wall Street, and then supported me in both the nonprofit and the business that I started. So and actually a bunch of Wall Street people were sort of like helpful in this. The nice thing about sort of getting to be as old as I am, which is, getting up there relatively, is like, you start to see like these people that, and there's only a few of them, but that have like stayed in your life for like 20, 30 years. And they're not your family because they are going to stay in your life no matter what. But those people who like, just are there. And like, there's a few people like that who I feel like have been, almost like angels that have come down that have like decided to grace me in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because even starting this podcast, this where we film and everything was attributed to my former boss. And it's that similar thing where it's like there's just people that come in your life sometimes that just want you to succeed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they're like little angels that come
Absolutely.
down and they just want to see you do well.
Mhm.
And it's rare when you find them, but when you find them,
Yeah.
they're in your life for life.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think so much of I think how I evaluate the value of my life are some of the relationships that I've had for like
Yeah.
20 years with people who we still like we've seen each other before we had kids, and we've gotten married, we've gotten
Yeah.
divorced, and we've been through stuff, and we've worked, and we've been unemployed, and we've struggled and bought houses or whatever, like just lived side by side. But if they ever need anything or I ever need anything, like they're
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I've seen people who've had quote unquote successful lives where I feel like they couldn't string 5 friends together. Like if you didn't have the
Totally.
money and you
Mm.
didn't have the thing, all these people would be gone. And I've seen it in finance, I've seen it in Hollywood, obviously, like the people where it's like your whole life is structured around people being around you because of your
Status.
proximity to
Yeah.
power and status. But none of those relationships are really real. And they know it.
Yeah.
There's a part of them that really knows it, and that's part of why I've watched people make such horrible decisions. But one of the things I've always evaluated or valued about my life is that at the end of the day, I got 7, 8 ride or die type people in my life that are not family, but are like chosen family where if it's like, I'm going to hell tomorrow, to be like, I book my ticket. I'll be right there with
Totally.
you.
I mean, that made me think of two things, but there's people like that at Everytable that we've been
Yeah.
through just so many wars together, and it's
Yeah.
just
Right.
like turning to the next one. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
right.
all just like
Yeah.
aligning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes life easier to live in that way.
But the other
knowing
thing you
have
reminded
those
me of is
people.
like my wife started out as a surgeon but became a psychiatrist, and like
Oh,
one of
wow.
the things about her life is like she both has like a telepsychiatry business called Remedy that sees
Mhm.
people at relatively low prices, but she also sees the highest of the high
Sure.
in Brentwood, and she is the best sort of window into the world.
Mhm.
And it's not that rich people are more miserable than it's just that money doesn't matter. People are dealing with brutal
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
all the time, no
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
who you
Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
things money can't buy. There are things that money can buy
Yeah,
that are
totally.
very real and
Yeah.
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah.
But there are other, like it can't buy you relationships. It can't buy
Peace,
you
happiness, a
like
good marriage, a good,
no,
Yeah.
a good
no, for
relationship with
sure.
your
It
kids.
can't buy you a
Yeah.
good marriage.
Yeah.
You know.
Health. Can't buy you that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah.
So the growth of Everytable. So I know that you guys ended up doing a huge pivot when COVID hit, and then and then some of the changes you made ended up sustaining
Yeah.
past. Can you
Well,
talk to us
yeah,
about
I mean,
that?
it's been a sort of fortuitous evolution. So the simple idea of Everytable, as you probably know, is we make these incredibly good scratch-made meals in a central kitchen and then take them to our small footprint stores that don't have kitchens. So we just sell the meals that
Right.
we've made at that one kitchen to people. And then during COVID, all the stores got shut down.
Right.
But we did a really good job sort of like leaning into the mission. And I don't know if you remember, there was a very, very scary time.
Yeah.
And one of the scariest things, the reason we made it through in the way that we did is that I remember there was this one day early on where Governor Newsom like sent out this thing that was like, seniors now have to stay in their homes. And by the way, how crazy is it that they were
Right.
like,
Oh yeah.
people are basically like locked in your
their
home.
house. Yeah.
And what occurred to us very quickly was like that it may be easy to order Instacart or DoorDash or whatever in Beverly Hills, but there's
Right.
people that don't have that kind of capital. So we basically like very quickly launched like a helpline that night and said, hey, if anybody needs food, like we will be here to help. And so we started getting calls with like individuals who were like that. But we also started getting calls from like agencies
Organizations,
that were
right.
like, I don't know how to
Help.
feed my people. I don't
Right.
know. And so all of a sudden we found ourselves at like the center of this like mobilization by the city to figure out how to feed
Right.
people. And so we ended up being like the primary provider of homeless meals, the primary provider of senior nutrition. So basically like seniors in their homes for
Right.
all of COVID. And so that was a very helpful sort of like way to navigate that business. And now we basically do that business along with our retail stores, and our retail stores fulfill those kind of businesses as well. And so what we learned in that is that there are these enormous prepared food markets that are like, you've probably heard of them as like Meals on Wheels, but also like K through 12, homeless shelters, medically tailored meals. And so we do all of those.
Please take over the hospital meals.
We're working on that. We got
Please.
Please,
Sam.
But there's just
We're
so
dying
many,
out here.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's like in an interesting sort of like nice way, like the government has taken the responsibility to feed kids, and they've taken the responsibility to feed seniors who don't have money. But the problem, as you might guess, is that there's not a lot of money for those foods. And so the meals kind of suck, basically.
Exactly.
But because we have this business our business is making really high quality meals for low prices, we actually do really, really well in those markets as well as with consumers.
Yeah. Great.
That's amazing. And how has it been? What's the response like when you enter, like, say, schools?
Well, it's great. It's like, for example, we won the contract with Compton Unified. And the reason we won that contract, even though we were a relatively new K through 12 business, is because all the teachers eat at Everytable Compton. And they were like, Everytable, this is great. You know, I want the kids to have it. And so it's really beneficial.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing.
So somebody who's worked both in Wall Street and then also in nonprofit space, you're a dad, you have kids. Do you steer them one way or another, or what's the feedback that you give to them? Or
you know what, that's a good question. And one of the things I was thinking about earlier in this is like, because of this sort of like philosophy that I had about like it being their journey, in a weird way, it sort of like makes me, I don't want to say like less protective of my kids, because when I first had kids, it was like, I never want them to experience a single ounce of pain in their entire life.
Of course.
But now I'm a little bit like, who knows where their journey is going to go and what they're going to learn.
And they have to learn how to handle
with the discipline.
Well, and it's also probably, I'm saying that too, because once your kids get out in the world, like they just do experience pain. And you're just like, there's nothing you can do.
You can't do anything. I know. It's brutal.
It's brutal.
It's brutal.
But so, like I want them to find their way in whatever is like, and it's funny, like my kid, like my oldest daughter is this like fireball who's like a singer. And so she would love to be Taylor Swift and like, maybe she'll do that. And my son is like quiet and reserved and there's so it's like, I don't know what they're
Yeah. Do you get them involved in the business?
They come and work at Everytable when we do stuff in Compton or giveaway stuff or host Thanksgivings for people that don't have places to go for Thanksgiving. The kids will all come.
Oh, great. That's great.
They all get so tired of the food. They're like, Everytable again.
You go to your house, there's just Cheetos everywhere. I like to hell with this stuff.
But the thing is, we're in the kids, as we're in the school food business, and it is the hardest business because you have to make things low cost. You have to make it sort of like relatively nutritious. But at the end of the day, it's the kids who decide if they're going to eat the food.
Absolutely.
And what do kids want to eat every day is like
burgers and fries.
Right. Yeah.
Chicken nuggets.
What do you do with that? How do you tailor
You have to make
meals?
You have to make it incredibly simple, and you have to make it stuff that they will like. And so there's like a meat and bread and chicken and rice and where it's like it cannot be
chicken
fancy.
and rice goes hard, and let me tell you something.
Well,
chicken and rice.
It turns out kids were eating before McDonald's. You know what I
They
mean?
were.
Like, they were eating. But you have to. But they're also like
absolutely.
You can't mess around with like here's a little quinoa and
No, not that. But people do eat at home.
No.
Yeah, people do eat at home.
Burritos, they like burritos.
Sure. Yeah. Well, especially in LA, burritos go.
Yeah.
In New York, it's bacon, egg, and cheese. But, out here, a little breakfast burrito is the same thing.
Yep.
Do you see that difference, though? Because I know you're in different markets. Like, do you see...
Not much. Like basically, my takeaway is that kids in every single neighborhood would like to eat fries and chicken fingers for every meal. So that's what you're trying to deal with. Like,
Right. That's amazing.
Knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself that year you were deliberating leaving?
Well, for sure to do it. Like, I feel like for me, it was like the moment that I sort of stepped out to figure out what I was going to do, as opposed to like what the status of the world sort of said I should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's my sort of advice for everybody is like the sooner that you can get to that of like, that place of like not knowing what you're going to do, but trying to figure it out, as opposed to sort of like being on the path. That's a place that I think that's where the growth happens.
What got you over the fear, though, of failure?
You know,
Did you ever have a fear of failure or not really?
well, it wasn't so much failure as a fear of like what I was walking away from, what I was giving up.
Yes.
I think that's a great way to put it. There was such a wonderful thing to have this like Ivy League and then Wall Street
Right.
and then hedge fund. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you do?
Yeah.
yeah. But I think, I mean, the simple answer is like the pain of it. I feel lucky that I got to see that I didn't fit in that place. And it wasn't that I couldn't have made it or I couldn't have like, it was just that it wasn't me.
Yeah. The one question we like to ask all of our guests is, what is your definition of success today? And has it changed over time?
I think my definition of success is that basically you can answer this question of like, was your life successful?
Right.
And the answer is yes. And I think the only way you can answer that yes is if you accomplish the things that were truly important to you personally, not to everybody else, not to the world, but it's like,
Right.
everybody's got this like crazy story and journey and parents and things that they're reacting to. It's like, did all of that come together? Did all of that come together into a story that made sense? I think is the
Right.
thing, which is like, did the things that who you are and the circumstances that you were in sort of lead you to this place, and then you got over the thing you had to get over to get
Right.
where you're.
Right. No, that makes sense. I just feel like it's like eliminating the noise.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the truth. It's like,
Right.
and maybe, I mean, honestly, that's probably my best guess, that we're all sort of like spirits that come down to learn something here.
Mhm.
You ever see there was an old movie called like Defending Your Life, but it was basically like when you die, you go to this place and then you view the history of your life to see if you made it to the next stage.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we're all doing
Yeah,
that.
I
think
feel
we're
like
all-
that's a thing. Listen, without having seen that movie, like I feel that way. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm going to have to answer to someone,
Yeah.
to some entity. Like, okay, let's play this tape back.
Roll the
and
tape.
Roll the tape. Yeah, that's how I really feel.
Yeah.
Like that. I do like some kind of Judgment Day thing. Like I feel
Yeah.
like I'm living in that way, thinking about, okay, if I've got to defend this in court
Yeah.
for my salvation, I feel good about the decisions I made. I feel good about what I was trying to do. I feel good about what I set out for. Like I do feel that way. I feel like I'm living my life like so that one day if this comes back, I'm like, here, let me make my case.
Yeah.
Which I think is ultimately a good thing. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
bad thing. I don't look at that process as like some horrible negative,
Yeah.
thing. But can you answer? Can you answer for your life? Can you answer for the things that you did? Are you at peace
Yeah.
with like the kind of impact you made?
Did you make good use of your time?
Period.
I also think too, I feel like sometimes I wonder if the human psychology is, once you can achieve and do something very, very well, it no longer gives you the same type of satisfaction because you're intended to then do something else that is supposed to then
Mm-hmm.
give you more.
Keep learning.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
You know,
That's interesting.
yeah. What would you say is your superpower?
I would say resilience. At the end of the day, I'm a person that you don't want to be on the other side of a fight.
I hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Love that. Sam, thank you so much for coming to the exit interview, sharing your story, letting us know about Everytable and being so open about all of your journey and giving us some practical feedback, advice, insight to share with people.
Well,
listening
thanks
out.
for having me. It was so good to chop it up with you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so
So fun.
much.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.